Hey everyone, it's McCloud and it's time to do one of these again. There's a KC Cup going on and there's a bunch of decks that we need to talk about. A quick recap of what the tiers mean. Tier 1's best deck of the format, the ones that you want to be most prepared for, and the ones that you should play or play counters for. Tier 2 decks that are either really good against the Tier 1 decks, or decks that are strong enough to stand on their own, but kinda not maybe the greatest against Tier 1. Tier 3/rogue is pretty much anything that has an edge against the other two top categories, but otherwise fails to have a noticeable impact or just fumbles on the way through. It could be something that has like a really good matchup against one deck, but a really mediocre matchup against other stuff. So that's how it be, that's how it do be. Unplayable Garbo is just everything else that's completely unplayable. So, without further ado, I'm not gonna do these in order. Let's just be honest with ourselves here. We are just going to put Lyrilusk in tier 1 and it's going to be the only tier 1 deck. I'm so tired of this deck. It has been dominating the format ever since it was released. It got even stronger as other decks got nerfed, but it didn't. And I would like for it to go away now, please, please. It's so incredibly annoying that this deck is allowed to play Yu-Gi-Oh! On a completely different level than any other deck. And also, it can win doing so, and also you have to prepare for it, but also the best counters for it are like pay-to-win staples. This sucks! This format sucks! Alright, what are some other good decks? Ghost Streaks, I feel, would be a tier 1.5 deck. I don't want to put it in tier 1 because it does have clear weaknesses and disruption that you can use against it, and also it is a control deck, and by that virtue, the games that it plays take a lot longer, which is not necessarily ideal, especially if you want to grind point in stage 2. But it's a pretty strong deck regardless, has a really good matchup against Lyrilusk, so it's tier 1.5. I'm just gonna put it there. It's not as strong as Lyrilusk, but it is close enough. Speaking of decks that are not as strong as Lyrilusk but close enough, Predaplants is a pretty good one. It has a mediocre matchup against Lyrilusk. It's a really coin flipping matchup because if you go second, you're much happier going against Lyrilusk, and if you go first, because you'll find you have an easier time breaking their board than disrupting them, which I guess is also a weakness of the deck. Like, it's good at breaking board, it's not good at playing through disruption, which can be an issue against, well, Ghost Streaks very specifically, and some other more top-heavy decks out there. So, I don't know, it's a good deck. Tier 2 feels right for it. Another Tier 2 contender, Revolution Develop bullshit. It's insane that the scale is still in the game. The deck has been adapting to every other metagame. We're not playing Bish Turbo anymore. I mean, some variants of it are, but now we're playing, what are we playing? We're playing plant stuff with Bengal Lancer and something else. I played the deck, I cogged with it, it was incredibly boring through and through. I just hate this deck so much, and the issue is the skill, and I hope that the skill can go away after this KCC. Speaking of former top tier dogs, Borrowlink has fallen off pretty hard. It's not that it got affected by the latest ban list, because it really didn't. It saw a lot of decks getting nerfed when it didn't. But it has such a bad birds matchup, and it's so easy to play around though. It has such a bad Predaplants matchup, and it's just starting to get slowly power crept, which is an insane thing to say about a deck that has a skill that puts a free link to on the field and all but sets up Livioneer for you. This format is garbage. Star Seraph is probably down there as well. You know, the deck got hit the hardest out of all the previous metagame decks, and it is still competitive, and it's gonna get a scale that is pretty much the pre-nerf scale all over again. Why are we doing this? Why are we even playing this game anymore? What's the point? What's even the point? This format sucks! Star Seraph's got nerfed and it's still playable because they did not completely destroy the scale and they're just gonna remake an exactly similar scale that's pretty much the same thing. I hate this so much. Sharks is probably like rogue tier worthy. You have access to Graveyard Disruption and Needle Sealing that doesn't affect you, which I guess is good against birds. Maybe not so good against Ghost Tricks. The thing is, like, both Lyrilisk and Ghost Tricks have such a huge impact on the metagame, but they play so differently and require different counters that it's really difficult to find a deck that does both and does both convincingly. Sharks is not one of these decks. I feel like it has a better birds matchup than it has a Ghost Trick matchup, and for this reason it's gonna stay down there. Sky Strikers, either there or there. I want to put it behind Predator Plants. I feel like it is one of these decks that has tools to adapt to both the Lyrilisk matchup and the Ghost Trick matchup. It does prefer going first to set up a disruption. It might have a little bit of trouble beating a fully set up Lyrilisk or Ghost Trick board. But then again, the deck is like still so flexible that you can slot a decent amount of tech cards in and not lose in consistency or anything. This deck is just whack. This deck is just crazy. When it played in the proper hands, and once again, it is a control deck. Not the easiest ones to play, and the easiest ones to fumble. Speaking of not the easiest ones to play, Time Thief is there. It's pretty much the same deck as the previous format, but it's there. It does stuff, maybe. I don't know. If it goes first, it's doing great. If it goes second, that's the whole of the story. I don't think the Ghost Trick matchup is too favorable for this, but then again, you do have a non-targeting spin, which is probably worth something in every single matchup. Sacred Beasts! I wanted to... There we go. Big monster go, Unga Bunga. Punch you in face, 8,000 damage, win game. So skill intensive. Thing is, the protection offered by Fall in Paradise falls short in face of Predator Plants. This deck has a bad Predator Plant matchup. It doesn't have the greatest Lyrilisk matchup, and the Ghost Trick matchup isn't too good either. So this one is really like either, I don't know if it's better than Time Thieves. I'm gonna put it there because it's easier to play and it rack up win more quickly. But it's like on its way out to being Unplayable Garber. Speaking of Unplayable Garber, Blue Eyes is not good anymore. Blue Eyes is simply not worth playing anymore in a format that is adapted to targeted disruption. You know, you try it against birds, you just can't target them. You try it against Predator Plants, they just spully your things away. You try it against Ghost Tricks, they just Ghost Trick Renovation engrave. It's not an easy game for Blue Eyes out there. The ceiling on this deck is too low compared to what newer decks are able to do. Same with Tachyon. I don't know why I put even Tachyon there. I guess I just wanted to talk shit about Tachyon because I hate this deck so much. Tachyon's not good. Tachyon is PP Garbo that requires you to go first and also not face Predator Plants in case they remove your monster that enables your counter trap bullshit. Ancient Warriors. I feel like they have a lot of potential. I'm gonna put them... You know what? I'm gonna put them over Shark. It's a complicated deck, and it's a deck that has like access to a lot of like resolve tricks and is able to pivot between a more aggressive playstyle and a more controlling mid style. I kind of like this style of mid-range deck that is able to adapt, but also doesn't like disruption too much, do they? And yeah, sure, you can negate some direct attacks, but this deck doesn't really have any convincing outs to untargetable Dissembled Nightingale, and it's gonna stay there. It's a bit too high, maybe it's not as good as Sharks. But I feel like it's one of these decks that could take the metagame by surprise if people are not prepared for it. True Dracos! Another new-ish... Well, this one is a completely new deck. Ancient Warriors and Ghost Tricks and Unplayable Plan just got new support. I still count them as new decks, but True Draco is the newest new deck out there. And I feel like I want to put it at the beginning of tier 3, or maybe even in tier 2. I feel like this is the strongest of the rogue decks out there. It's a Floodgate deck by and large, so you'd really need to join your Floodgates to get anything going. Some people have been playing the Dogmatica variants where you play Ecclesia and Fleur de Lis, to access additional points of disruption, which is pretty interesting. It's not like you're using the extra deck much with Trudraker. This is a strong control deck, but it is a bit too slow and doesn't trade favorably with decks that have scale that say +1 or +2. You know what I'm saying? This is still like a fair deck in an unfair competitive environment, which is why it can struggle sometimes and needs to draw these floodgates. Like Power Sing Stone is a really popular one. I've seen people play Summon Limit or Summon Breaker, whichever one. Summoning Curse, I think, is the name of the card that banishes a card from your opponent's hand if they special summon. But it's like unsearchable tech that you can't really rely upon. I don't know, I really want to be surprised by Trudraker because that would be the sign that a fair deck can compete in this environment, but I don't think it's gonna happen. Speaking of fair decks, I'm sorry Unchained, you are on your way out. You're maybe better than Time Thieves. Really bad Preplant matchup, really mediocre Ghost Trick matchup, really bad Lyrilisk matchup. There's not much saving for this deck. This is probably also going to be Unplayable Garbo in the next format unless some significant changes happen. Dark Fluid is probably like the bottom of tier 3 or the also in the Unplayable Garbo category. I'm gonna put it in Unplayable Garbo. It's a really convoluted combo deck which doesn't play well against a lot of disruption, and look, some of the best decks in this format have access to a lot of disruption. So if you go second, you pray, and if you go first, you pray that your opponent isn't on Predator plants and also playing the Hydra, and I don't know, it doesn't seem easy for like combo heavy decks to perform in this environment because we have more and more control deck Shadows. Still very playable in this metagame. You know, and it's another disruption heavy control deck that is sure to annoy more than one person. For the same reason I feel like Gearfried variants have run out their course, and the probably unplayable. The best way to play Revolution Defler is to play literally anything else because Gearfried is not good enough anymore. Gearfried simply doesn't cut it. Single disruption decks simply don't cut in general, which is also an issue with Cyber Dragons. It looks impressive. Look, you have access to an Omni Negate, but then you have access to only one Omni Negate. And at most you have access to 2 with Vimana, which are like monster negates. And then your opponent just plays Predator Plants and tributes over your Cyber Dragon Infinity. See what I mean? Like there's so many, there's like 3 decks that determine the stake of this format, and they are Lyrilisk, Ghost Tricks, and Predator Plants. And these are not necessarily the best decks. I think like Rev Defler is better than Predator Plants, but because these decks exist, there are some stuff that you can do in this format. For instance, you can't end on a single boss monster worth of disruption, because otherwise it's just gonna get Hydra'd. You can't just not have access to non-targeting removal, because otherwise Lyrilisk gets you alive. And you also need some sort of game plan to play around Ghost Trick, which probably requires a lot of disruption and a lot of anti-back row tools, which Cyber Dragons certainly have, but still not good enough. I'm gonna put it over there. I think this deck's like tourney performance has been even worse than Time Thieves actually, so you know what? Go right down there. What else is there? Zombie good stuff. I've been a huge advocate of zombie good stuff deck, you know, Balodrock piles that just activate Zombie World. Doesn't do anything against Ghost Tricks or Predator Plants. So once again, I think we're entering the realm of Unplayable Garbo, because there's too many things that you just don't do anything. You know what, actually I'm going to be more severe. I'm going to put this in Unplayable Garbo. I'm going to put Unchained in Unplayable Garbo. And I'm going to put Cyber Dragons in Unplayable Garbo. Like, all 3 of these decks have losing matchup against too many top decks to be worth considering. Mayakashi is a little bit better. Mayakashi might be a rogue contender once again. I don't know, because like Ghost Tricks activate Necro Valley from deck. What do you do? What do you do? It's complicated. And I think this deck doesn't have the greatest Lyrisk matchups. You know what? Put it in Unplayable Garber. Shiranui, you get to beat Lyrisk at their own game because you also take no damage forever, and you can trade resources with them pretty favorably. And it's annoying, and I hate this deck. I think it's rogue for this very reason. The fact that it like has a skill that allows it to get an advantage in resources. It's pretty good, but then again, you know, if Ghost Tricks activate Necro Valley, what do you do? If Ghost Tricks activate Summon Limit, what do you do? If Predator Plants put so many Predator counters on your stuff, what do you do? The new Odd Eye stuff I haven't seen perform particularly in this newest formats. You know, we got Harmonizing Magician, Odd Eyes, Performer Path Synchron. I want to say it's Unplayable Gabber, also want to hold out hope that it is actually secretly super really good and will take everyone by surprise because someone has figured out a variant that does like what the old Raging Pendulum did but better. Probably just coping. Put this one in the Unplayable Garber. Put it behind, you know what? Put it behind Unchained. And as much as it pains me to say it, I think Red Raptor is also like down there, you know? Yeah, it's a cool deck that can set up CDI better than Cyber Dragons can, but I mean, like, you need to go first. Your turn 1 board gets super polyed away by Predator Plants. And Hydra, of course. And you can't do anything against Ghost Tricks, because they can just be like, okay, I'm gonna take Jiangxi, set 3 back row pass. It's probably Unplayable Garbo as well, but it's better than Cyber Dragon, so we'll give it that. And that's it, that's the tier list. That's the format, everyone. Isn't it such a fun format? Aren't you having fun in this KCC? See you all next week for the ban list wish list, in which I completely obliterate this deck and this deck. Leave these two alone because I'm biased, and also obliterate this deck just because I don't want the new skill, which is the old skill but better, to make this worth playing again. Thank you all for watching this video, everyone. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed it more than you're enjoying the current Duel Links formats, which, once again, is pee-pee poo-poo bad. Special thanks in particular go to Dingust, OutdishBoy0, Zinnia, Jimmy, and Yannick for their donations on Coffee. If you would like to help me in any way, I'm trying to find something funny to say here. If you'd like to help me buy my way out of Duel Links, if you'd like to finance me buying Konami so that these kind of decks never happen again, you make sure to donate to my Coffee, which is linked in the description of this video. And what else is there to say? Thank you once again for watching. Take care, everyone, and I will see you all next time.